believe it or not, I wasn't always a political science major. Long ago, I was a communications major. I know that sounds kind of strange to y'all, but yeah, I did not go to the school. I went to a school much like this one, but I was not going to be a media major. No, nothing like that. Or not a political science major. I was going to be a media major. I'd actually worked in newspapers throughout high school. I don't mean campus newspapers, although I wrote for them as well. But no, I worked for the El Paso Herald-Post, an afternoon newspaper. And the El Paso Time, or they also had a morning edition on Saturday morning. And I started out in the sports section covering high school football. And I couldn't believe that people would pay me 20 bucks, which, if you think about it, minimum wage back then was $3.14 an hour. Somebody would pay me 20 bucks to go to a high school game and report on it afterwards. I was like, ah, that's like amazing. So I had this neat little portfolio even before I went to college. And I highly recommend, regardless of what you decide, I highly recommend you all get a portfolio. Remember this. Remember very carefully. Portfolios are huge. They're important. They're not as big as they used to be. Back then, I got all my articles. This was my mom's idea. One of my mom's ideas that worked was to save all the articles I wrote. So I can go back to 1986, the first high school game I ever wrote about. But they paid me to do it. And after a year of doing that, they actually put me in charge of other people. So here I was, 16 years old, and I had people in their 40s and 50s and 30s who were covering the other games reporting to me. I was like, oh my gosh, so I really like that stuff. I wrote in, I had a paid job working for the campus newspaper as well. Was a section editor. It's all good stuff to get involved in. And so that's what I was going to do. I was going to be a media person. But then something happened in the media. You probably have noticed this sort of thing happening, in fact. But while I was a media reporter, almost every city in Texas, and I went to school in Texas, they had two reporters or two newspapers per city, especially all the big ones. By the time I graduated, all of them had gone down to one. Newspapers, TV, radio, they were all downsizing. That's kind of scary if you're graduating in that field. And so another good thing to do, and I wasn't always the smartest student, I was not. But I did do a couple things that were pretty smart. I learned about what my field was about. I didn't just study stuff to study, for the sake of studying it. I studied to figure out what kind of job I was going to get. And when I saw what kinds of job I was going to get, and I was preparing myself, were going to be very different. I shifted over to get involved in advertising and public relations. So my senior year, I applied for a job in October, I got hired in November in the midst of a recession. And I was getting paid $10 an hour, 3 times minimum wage in public relations. So it was a different kind of writing, but I started recasting myself because I realized that the media industry was undergoing some tough times, and it continues to do so today. But this was something that it paid pretty well, and they were hiring. And so I wrote a lot about insurance, and so I did all kinds of insurance writing. And even today, I continue to write columns, but a lot of my stuff is for new media, online stuff, social media sometimes. My wife is a social media director. Katie Hearn, who got to work for the Atlanta Braves, who works full-time. She's a full-time employee. She's social media director. So sometimes I tell people who are interested in the media to focus on things. She shifted her ideas from radio to working for corporations. So some of that has changed. Some of that has changed how the field's done. So regardless what you do, really try and get involved in definitely try and get involved in learning about your field. Be ready to be adaptable as well. That's the biggest lesson I can give you, right? Ron's not here. Something. Yeah, I saw Jordan earlier. Yeah, so no matter what you do, whether you're going to do political science or otherwise, always try and figure out a lot about what you're going to go into, what you're going to do. Don't just think about now. Think about a couple of years from now. Reading a book, Winners by Alistair Campbell. I was telling my American Experience class about this. And about Wayne Gretzky's famous quote about not skating where the puck is, but where the puck is going. It's important. So you got to think about the future. You got to think about where you're going, not where you are now, but where you're going to be. Are you going in the right trajectory? Okay, media does a couple things in order from most to least effective. I don't know if you know this, but the overwhelming number of newspapers, magazines, etc., overwhelmingly endorsed Hillary Clinton. I mean, it was like, I've never seen, nothing's even close to as many endorsements of one candidate over another. I've never seen that level. But, you know, where most people thought, okay, this automatically means Trump cannot win. So, you know, I think even Gary Johnson had more endorsements than, among major circulation than Donald Trump. But I knew that wasn't going to matter very much because that's actually the least effective thing the media does, is persuade people to do something. People don't follow editorials. They don't make their decisions based on what the media tells them to do. Not as much as we think. Ways that media are more successful. News making. Who here watches local TV? Like Atlanta TV? Eye on Atlanta, CBS, ABC, or it could be like a Columbus affiliate. Who here has watched an episode where the media has involved themselves in the story, where they'll investigate something, they'll conduct their own kind of sting operation? Who's seen one of those? Do you remember any of these? Give me an example that you might have seen where the media is engaging in something, where they've done some sort of undercover operation and they'll expose somebody for being less than honest with people, or who's doing something wrong, or is just not being very nice. Have you ever come across a case like that, Tyreek? Nothing? You've never watched an episode of the news where or maybe it's not in the evening or local news or weekly news, but nationally. Something where the media's exposed something, nobody's seen anything? Maybe particular news shows. It doesn't have to be about politics news if you got a sports example. Nobody has anything?
Did you say sports example?
Right, any kind of example.
The Ray Rice case.
Ooh. I think that would be, because didn't somebody was it TMZ? They got access to the hotel camera that was in the elevator.
Right now.
Does anybody remember the Ray Rice?
Yeah. In the hotel, in the elevator.
If you look online, you look up my name, John A. Turris, and type in Ray Rice, you can read my article on that subject. I think a piece of it got picked up by USA Today. But I was pointing out that the story would have been buried, would have gone away if there wasn't video. Was the point I was making.
Right now.
Because there are a lot of stories like that that get buried.
Alshon Jeffrey and the Bears with his PEDs.
I'm sorry, I was laughing about that the other day when it came to. It's a Green Bay Packer thing. It's not an Alshon Jeffrey thing. It's a Packer thing. I tell you, people keep going on sport. They keep talking about steroids and how it helps you. He's pretty brittle. I notice he's pretty brittle. Every time I see somebody else draft him in fantasy football, I go, you better get him back up. I don't think PEDs. I think it's like they help, but they can hurt as much as help. But anytime where the media is the story, the media is the one that's jumping in. Not like some scandal is reported in the media, but the media inserts itself. Growing up, example of this, growing up they had a gal by the name of Estella Casa. She was a newscaster, and she wanted to do a little study of her own. So she had her car pulled over and had the hood up and tried to see if anyone would stop to help her. And I mean, it was like a mile of cars waiting to pull over and help her. So she switched positions, put on like a baseball cap that her cameraman had. She kind of sat in the back seat, kind of kept a low profile, and he had the hood up and he was trying to wave people down to get help. Nobody stopped for him. She wasn't even trying to wave people on over. Everyone was just flocking over to see if they could help. Looking into something about how people act. Or you ever seen one where they go into auto shops and they try and do one little thing to the car that would be a real easy fix, and they want to see, have you seen one of these? They want to see which mechanic will go, oh, it's a little $5 fix. We figured out, small little thing. Or will they say, oh, I'm sorry, you need a new carburetor, that's going to cost you thousands. Anybody ever seen a news program like that? Nobody? Oh, okay. Good. I was beginning to think you were afraid to speak. It's okay. 2016 election's over. Anybody see anything like this? I took a class. It was called Women in the Media. It was special topics. It's one of the ones you had to take a certain number of communication classes. And we learned about this gal named Nellie Bly. It's not her real name, but she was a news maker. She would do stuff. You could read her stuff. It's pretty amazing. She heard that insane asylums, a lot of sane people were being locked up. They weren't really insane. They just got locked up on some technicality and would drive you insane. So she got locked up, or she made herself get locked up on a technicality with an editor ready to like get her out. And she was on the inside, and she brought like her notebook and pen and wrote like what it was like from the inside. Same thing with women's prisons. She heard that they were like, completely awful. And she wrote about stuff. And it led to a lot of social change. It was during the Progressive era. After reading about the stuff she wrote about, because see, she was a news maker. She didn't just report the news, she would make the news. Covering stuff nobody else would. It's the most powerful way the media has an influence on society. News making. Agenda setting. We covered this before. Sydney, do you remember what agenda setting is?
It's where they decide what pieces of legislation they want to use.
Perfect, yeah. Everybody's got ideas. 538 elected representatives showing on up. Well, 535, I guess. DC has like a person for observer status. But they all show up and they all got bills, but agenda setting determines who gets voted on. What will be the issues of the day? Everybody wants their issue to be of the day. How do you get your issue to be that? The media does the same thing. They decide what the issues are. So, I want you to go on to Yahoo. I want you to go on MSN. Y'all got cell phones, right? Take a look at Google News. CNN. Harrison, you got Fox News. Tell me what's on Fox News. Tell me a news source I haven't listed yet, Sydney.
News source you haven't listed.
Yeah. Go to Bing.com. How's that sound? You ever go to DuckDuckGo?
No.
You will now. DuckDuckGo. Click on news. What are the big news issues? Tyreek, what do you want? Oh my gosh, you're going to cut your thumbs open if you look up something. What are we going to do? We did CNN. We did, oh yeah, CBS. CBS.com. Tell me what the top news stories are.
A rocky transition. Sources. Trump's son-in-law is at center of infighting.
Wait, that's the same source?
That's CNN.
CNN saying that, like, Trump's son-in-law has to do with Iraq? Oh, a rocky. Oh God, I thought you were making it sound like he's like going to be the new head of Iraq's government. A Rocky, like Rocky Balboa. A Rocky. Oh, it says Trump's son-in-law is like a major figure.
There's a lot of fake on Google News. A lot of stuff going on about fake news reports.
Yeah, I was reading about that today. Fake news reports on Facebook.
Yeah, and then oil
Facebook.
oil industry,
I just made that up. I said it first.
Trump's rough transition.
Okay, so we're talking about Trump's transition to power.
My favorite is Glenn Beck. The alt-right is terrifying.
Oh, wow.
On Fox is talking about Trump's war with New York Times, and Oklahoma Spirit called it 208 miles an hour.
200 miles an hour? Is that one where he straps the jetpack to the car or something like that? He must have thought it was Germany's Autobahn. Quentin, what you got for the top news stories?
It just said that Trump pushes back against force, suggesting chaos.
Oh, okay. So some say chaos and he's saying no chaos. All right.
And one that says, firings and discord put Trump transition team in a state of disarray.
Wow, the Trump stuff is getting pretty heavy coverage here. Tyreek, what you got? You have no news? That must be good. No news is good. No. What you got? What you got? Go ahead. What's that? What is it? Oh, on CBS. Oh, it's CBS shows. Wait, don't they have CBS News? Oh, okay, try CBSNews.com. Sorry. What's on DuckDuckGo?
I'm still looking.
Still looking. Yeah, they'll usually have like a click on
It's
new. Oh, there you
Education
go.
board will take over bids for textbooks and then something else about.
On ethnic studies.
Yeah.
So there's a battle over ethnic studies. Future of XL pipeline in Texas.
Oh, mine
What
update
else?
3 days ago, Trump transition to the White House.
Okay, so a lot about the presidential transition.
Oh, this one has about protesters still protesting.
Oh, that's the Standing Rock thing where they got like an Indian reservation.
Trump called the electoral college genius after labeling it an investor.
McConnell, Schumer elected to top spots in the Senate ahead of battles with Trump. So does that mean that Nancy Pelosi is,
No, he's a New York senator. He's the new Senate minority leader.
okay?
So he's replacing Harry Reid, who is retiring. And the Nevada Attorney General, who's a Democrat, actually won Harry Reid's seat.
I thought I read something though about Nancy Pelosi being up for a leadership vote.
Oh yeah,
soon.
that'll be coming up soon. Okay, so there is some stuff about politics making it. Nothing about fluffy bunnies. No, it seems to be dominated by politics. That's always one of the cool things, folks, about being a political science major. When news comes out, it tends to be dominated by politics. So.
I want Seth LaGrange kid to appear on Chopped Jr.
Oh yeah, the kid is gonna be on the cooking show. That is the coolest thing. Wait, are you looking at local news?
I am, yeah.
Like LaGrange Daily News?
Carrie Fisher, I had an affair with Star Wars co-star Harrison Ford.
Really? Princess Leia and Han Solo were like linked? No, you don't say. Okay, what is it being covered?
This one, 5 Utah
Okay.
students stabbed in boys' locker room.
Oh my gosh. Hopefully they'll make it. What is it being covered? What do you mean you don't understand? What is it being covered in the news? What else do you think is newsworthy? What else do you think is newsworthy that hasn't been mentioned yet today? Is the media missing a story? Or have they pretty well got it all down? What could they be covering? What should they be covering? If you think of, I mean, you see how powerful news is. We can't even think of something that's not being covered by the news. Wasn't there some controversy with, like, I don't know, Black Lives Matter? Nobody's mentioned that yet. Anything about Russia? Or about China? I guess those aren't in the news today. Maybe they need something to do to be newsworthy. What else isn't being covered? What's the poverty rate like? Could the stock market tank? You know, are we in a bubble? Go ahead. It doesn't, liberal or conservative or moderate. What issues aren't You heard that commercial, they talk about the guy who lost his car to insurance, he goes, look out my window, what don't you see? My car. What don't we see?
It's mostly social issues. It's not really like education or business or stuff like that.
You mentioned something about a stabbing in Utah or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting, we had a guy, Freedom Rider. You ever heard of the Freedom Riders? This is the one, their bus was firebombed in Anniston. We had a guy who's an MLK speaker. He told me this, we caught up together in the lunchroom, and he told me something. First off, he said that LaGrange had the most integrated cafeteria of any college he had ever seen, other than the University of Mississippi. So you may not think, I mean, and I told him, I said, oh, hey, we're just doing it because you were here today, and he laughed. But he told me, the what?
Officer charged with manslaughter in Orlando, Castile killing, second, he was charged with second-degree manslaughter.
Oh, so something is coming up. Okay, it just came out.
Yeah.
Which one was that one?
CNN.
No, I'm not- no, I- okay, I'm
Orlando,
saying-
Castile,
Yeah, what place is that?
that was Minnesota.
That was,
So,
the one with the girlfriend, I think.
okay, so something, I guess, you know, it's like something, maybe something uncovered until you can say breaking news or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always think about like what's covered and what isn't covered as well. What's being shut out of things. Yeah. Agent of socialization. And before you start getting like, oh my gosh, this means socialism. No. Agent of socialization means that this is how you find out about how the American system works. This is how you find out about the free market system. This is how you find out about things like the melting pot and stuff. You have a number of agents of socialization. The media is one of them. How do you learn about politics? Besides the media is just one agent of socialization. What are some other agents of socialization? Wes, give me one. How do you find out about politics? How do you find out about economics, how things work? Read up, where do we read up on it? Media is just one agent of socialization. What are some of the others? How do you find out? I'm sorry? Yeah, okay, we got the media down, but what are some other ways you find out? Besides the media, what else is competing with the media to teach you about politics and economics? Oh, thank you. Okay, yeah, definitely. Education is seen as one. Grade school teachers, middle school, high school, college professors. Okay, education is one agent of socialization. Another one, Harrison. What's another agent of socialization? How you find out who to vote for, what the values are, how politics works. Why do we have the results we do? Who else teaches you this? Where do you find out about stuff?
I think your parents would be a good one.
Parents are typically the strongest agent of socialization you have. Not as strong as before, but they're still the largest group. Excellent. What are some other agents of socialization? Caitlin, you got one?
Well, I was gonna say parents, so.
Well, are there others?
I would say coaches.
Okay, yeah, there could be other, it may not be like your classroom teacher or something like that, but yeah, where you get your political influence. Okay, coaches. Nobody's ever mentioned coaches before for a class, but that's kind of interesting. Y'all talk about politics or something like that? You're taking like road trips or so?
Your peers.
Peer group. That's one that's actually, as parents, parents have the most powerful influence, but as their influence goes down just a little bit, peer groups are going up. Those are people like your age when you hang out. You talk about politics. Somebody mentions like an idea, you're like, yeah, that's a good one. Or somebody shares you a news story, a friend of yours on Facebook. It's how you get a lot of your information increasingly, especially at your age. I hung out with a lot of computer science, regular science geeks. It was a liberal arts, so we had like a whole melting pot of majors. I was the political science major, so when anything happened political, everybody like look at me. Like when the LA riots are going on, everybody looking at me going, what's going on? Like, why is this happening? So a lot of times people turn to me on something about politics. Like when our computers weren't working, then we'd go to the computer science person. Same idea. We had a big biology test, then the biology person's in charge. But we were kind of like our own little faculty. So we had this guy named Ross Perot running, I remember, he was like an independent businessman who, everyone's like, oh my gosh, is he gonna win? Is that gonna be dangerous for democracy? Have we ever had this sort of thing before? So a lot of friends would ask me questions about politics. You know, but that's how it works increasingly, right? And it doesn't even have to be your classmates, right? It might be friends that you grew up with. Don't y'all keep in touch on Facebook with, or is Facebook not the thing you keep in touch with?
Back in the day,
Back in the day.
I use social media.
Sometimes there's an interpreter. How many of y'all spotted the story about the Trump transition team in your news source? Go ahead, raise your hands high.
What is that?
You've got ABC News, by the way. You can go to ABC News for yourself. How many of y'all had something on Trump transition team? Go ahead. Raise it high. Super high. Okay. What was the angle? Oh wait, do you know what angles are? What's the angle to the story? The slant.
Spin.
The spin. Oh, that's a better term. Spin. What's the spin? Who had positive spins on Trump's transition team? What news sources have? Does anybody have any? Quentin, didn't you have one?
No, it was saying somebody's chaos.
Wait, and was it like, the spin was like, no, there's no chaos. Somebody like, it's chaos. It's not chaos, right? Those are slants, do you understand? So when news interpretation is like they kind of slant the issues. Here's one that we had growing up in the media, because we were always told that lots of things in the media are slanted because you can only have one lead. All right. Take a break from looking at the media, focus on me. Story comes out last night. There's a fire in an apartment complex. Firefighters rush to the scene. 83 people are saved. 17 people burned to death or jumped to their death. What's your lead? You only got one lead. Well, what could be your leads? Somebody give me a lead.
Firefighter saved 3 people.
Yeah, firefighters saved 83 people. I mean, you could, the lead could be the heroic efforts. More could have died if the firefighters hadn't rushed to the scene. They rescued a heck of a lot more people. What's another lead?
17 dead in the fire.
Yes, 17 dead in fire. You can focus on why was there a fire in the first place? How come there weren't fire escapes on the building? Firefighters did a really good job, but did they have enough time to get there? Was there like a traffic jam? You know, something up? You know, why couldn't everybody be safe? You know, so you only get one lead. It's not the most effective thing the news does. Used to be a much bigger deal. But these give you all the ideas of what the media does in general. Does that make sense? Now here's how it used to be. Long, long time ago, in an America far, far away, or far back at the time. Newspapers, they were run by political parties. They controlled newspapers. Seriously, like newspapers were run by political parties. So you can imagine what this is like. And if you don't believe me, it's like that, not today, here in America necessarily, but in a lot of countries. A friend of mine, he and I worked for the same defense contract firm. He got a job over in Sweden. He kind of became our European rep, and even though Sweden's not a NATO member, he'd catch up with them. But he married some Swedish gal. When she married him, or she met him, she was kind of a socialist. So she read a lot of socialist stuff and like had all the TV. And then when she married him, she became more right-wing or more, you know, or less socialist. So she changed her newspaper subscription, her TV shows, you know, in a lot of ways changed friends groups. You kind of change your life. You know, the country's based on whether something happens. Yeah. Papers were incredibly slanted. I know people are like now, oh, the media is controlled by one party or the other. Well, back in the day, it actually was. Not only that, you want to hear a scandal story? Like, when Thomas Jefferson was in office during his first term, he started getting all these letters to the editor, and it said, I'm a Federalist, that's his opposing party. Thomas Jefferson was Democrat, Republican. He goes, I'm a Federalist, but, you know, I think this Jefferson guy ain't so bad. Well, they did some research later, you know what they found? Most people now believe Thomas Jefferson wrote all of those. Well, that's what you did back then. Yeah, media was powerful. You realize, I mean, when we had our amendments to the Constitution, they worked in freedom of the press in the First Amendment. And not to take anything away from guns, but freedom of the press went in before guns. Because, and guns are very important in American society, but the press was one way that the Americans won the revolution. Did y'all know that? We had, like, everyone keeps talking about the Pony Express. Well, long before we had a Pony Express, we had a system where, like, people would print up papers all over the place, and they had a series of riders, destinations. We spread news about stuff so freaking fast. Far longer. The British were, like, stuck in the mud when it came to media. It would take them forever to have a response. Like, everyone in America, and you always say, like, even if you were illiterate, you ever see these scenes in colonial times of somebody reading the news and everyone gathered around? Even if you couldn't read, somebody in every town could read. Sometimes it was a kid going to school, and they would, like, be reading the news. Everybody in the colonies knew something before the King of England knew about it. Going across on a ship. That was very important to the colonists. That's why they enshrined freedom of the press in the First Amendment, because it's what helped us get our independence. Anybody heard of the Boston Massacre? Want to know who wrote the account? Want to know who did the picture showing all the British firing into a crowd? It may have been a little give and take. So it was important to get your story out there first. Want to know who did it? You've heard his name. He did a midnight ride, I'll let you know. Paul Revere.
I know it.
Sons of Liberty. How was she taken? Can you guess? Yeah, that was very important. And it's very slanted, very biased, but very inspirational. Got a lot of people agitated. Bet you didn't know that John Adams actually defended Captain Preston and got him from serving a day in jail. Things are more complicated. John Adams could always see both sides of an issue. More moderate. Going into the 1800s, papers became commercial enterprises. They weren't controlled by political parties anymore. They were business ventures. Does anybody know, how did these papers make money? Okay, go ahead and laugh. Businesses don't make money. How did they used to make money?
Subscriptions?
That's one way. In fact, it started off based on subscriptions. But when you get into the golden age of media, when media just becomes completely dominant, subscriptions don't make up everything. It's kind of like subscriptions, you ever go like a baseball game? It's like the walk-up sales of the subscription. How does sports make money? It's not just attendance.
Merchandise sales.
Oh yeah, okay, so you get this. Merchandise sales, come on, house. What are the ways which sports makes money? Yeah, so walk-up attendance, but how do they really make money?
People paying them for advertisements.
Advertising, yes. Advertising is huge, right? That's how people they want to get their products out. If you don't believe me, when I was growing up, you used to have all the bowl games were called things like Orange Bowl. And I worked at the Sun Bowl. And there was the Rose Bowl. There's the Peach Bowl. What else? Come on, help me. Sugar Bowl. All you SEC fans. They don't call them those anymore. What do they call them?
Allstate.
Yeah, the Allstate Bowl. Was it Nokia Sugar Bowl? John Hancock. They don't even call it the Sun Bowl anymore. It's the John Hancock Bowl. Because John Hancock, the business, bought out the rest of the bowl. Even now, what do they name the new Atlanta Falcons stadium after an Atlanta Falcons star like Michael Vick?
Nice. Mercedes-Benz.
Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Isn't the Mercedes-Benz own the Superdome too?
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, wow. They're not even a U.S. company. Think about this. I had, there's a friend of mine, he's a husband of one of the professors. He and his dad did a little experiment with the Super Bowl. and they did a click from the time an action starts in a football game till like the whistle's blown. They said the game was like 20 minutes. That's not how long a Super Bowl is. It's like 5 hours. It's not just the halftime show with those sharks and Katy Perry. It's a lot of ads. Somebody look up how much a 30-second Super Bowl ad is. I like that. That's a good answer. A lot. But I mean, for a lot of like their entire year goes into like a 30-second ad. Apple Computer. That's how Apple Computer became so dominant. They had this really cool ad in 1984.
5 million.
5 million for 30 seconds. That seems kind of low. Must have been higher in years earlier.
That's the record high.
Record high. But yeah, just a lot of times one ad can make a company. Wow, 30 seconds, 5 million. You ever see the ad where they like they make a really bad commercial and they're like, we spent what on a 30 second?
That's actually kind of disgusting. Like, that should be illegal.
Oh my God.
When you think about it, like what? $5 million.
Papers, yeah, papers would sell subscriptions, you know, a penny subscription. It mostly covered the cost of the paper itself and the ink and the reporters. The real money to be made was in advertising. Not only that, how do you get people to read stuff? This is a term you need to know. Muckraking. Who knows what muckraking is? Has you ever heard of muckraking before or covered it? There's actually a site called muckraker.com. They posted something of mine there. I was like, oh my crap, yeah, I didn't even know about this site. We got something of it. What's muckraking? Anybody know? Well, what is muckraking? Anybody out on a farm? Anybody have to do some home improvement stuff?
I guess you could say that the video they released of Donald Trump is kind of muckraking.
Yeah, that would be a good. I was going to ask for examples in a few minutes. Okay, we can start. Yeah, muckraking back then was like you were trying to expose stuff. You ever heard the term expose? Anybody? Yeah, like an expose. What was it? There was a conservative group. They took down a group that supported Obama with registration. Was it Acorn or something? And what they had is they did the people disguised themselves and they sent in people on the inside, and then the people on the inside told them stuff, and they were like put that video out everywhere. And it took down Acorn, which was a powerful Democratic voter registration group. Got him on the inside. That's like kind of muckraking, or showing the video of Donald Trump and what he was saying on camera. Around the time of the Spanish-American War, they were borderline making up stuff to try and get Americans mad about Spain and wanted us to send troops to Cuba and the Philippines in order to fight. They were trying to get people's attention, but they also wanted you to buy advertising. You know, you still have newspapers, obviously, but then other forms of media came up. One of my favorite books is it's by Eric Larson, and it's called Thunderstruck. I read it. Okay, I admit, I like the AC/DC song, so I had to get it. But nevertheless, by the way, I played Thunderstruck for my son one night because he was asking about it. He goes, Dad, this sounds like something on like must-see NBC football or something like that. Sure enough, while I was exercising, I was watching a Virginia Tech Pittsburgh game, and they played Thunderstruck like 5 minutes after I turned on TV at the stadium, so he was right. Yeah, Thunderstruck is about the creation of the radio and the impact of the radio. I mean, most people, they thought it was crazy that you could like send something out over the air. I mean, it just blew people's minds. One of the first big things they played was like religious hymns because they didn't want people to think the devil was doing stuff. One of the early people, the first radio signal ever sent was not by Marconi. He's the guy who did the radio, but the first ever signal was sent by a guy who's trying to do a seance. And he did it by accident. Threw people for a loop. That's how the era was. You could cover news wider, faster. You know, you think about like radio, you know, signals could be instantaneous. You didn't have to like wait. radio broadcasts. Anybody know of any famous cases of radio broadcasts involving politics? Pre-television, of course. That may have had a big impact on politics. If I said FDR, would that mean anything to you?
Oh, like this fireside chat?
Excellent. Fireside chats. He would do this, get in front of a crackling fire, and it's pretty cold out. You know, back in those days, and you're huddled around. And Roosevelt would explain what was like going on. Unfiltered. He would just talk about what was happening. You know, for a lot of people, that's, you know, they got fascinated. They wanted to know. It was during the Great Depression. People were scared about what their futures were going to be. The world started going very authoritarian. Countries were taking over other countries. People were worried about their... So it seemed very reassuring that you had somebody going out trying to explain stuff. So yeah, that's why FDR gets 4 terms. Not sure many other politicians could get 4 terms. I think even 2-term presidents like Reagan, Clinton, and Obama that were popular at the end, even they, like majorities of people said they didn't want them running for a 3rd term. Not that they disliked the person. They just, you know. But yeah, FDR was able to milk that for quite a while. Then you got the role of television. Most people, I mean, television, I think the first TV broadcast of something involving politics was in the late 40s, early 50s. But definitely by 1960, the television coverage of the 1960 debates between Kennedy and Nixon, which were very close, that was only decided by a small margin. Well, in the Electoral College, it was much bigger for Kennedy, but popular vote was very close. And how the candidates looked and sounded on TV were very important. In fact, Richard Nixon, when he did his ads, he would get out and he would just start talking like I'm doing right now. The Kennedy folks, they turned their ads over to advertising people, so they would create little jingles and stuff. So everybody could remember the Kennedy ads. You ought to look it up. Go ahead and look up 1960 Kennedy campaign ad. And it'll be stuck in your skull for the rest of the day.
You might just put it on full screen.
It sounds like Christmas music. You gotta do the, now do the Nixon ad. You could say Democrats got TV a little bit.
What is the most important issue confronting the American people in this election campaign? There's no question about the answer that I have found in traveling all over this nation. Above everything else, the American people want leaders who will keep the peace without surrender for America and the world.
Ain't nothing wrong with
Richard
it.
Lodge and I have had the opportunity of serving with President Eisenhower in this cause for the last 7.5 years. We both know Mr. Khrushchev. We have sat opposite the conference table with him. We
Okay.
know what peace.
So this is Hillary Clinton, and then the other one was Donald Trump. Poor gal.
Yeah, I mean, you know, not only that, but you can see the visual is far more exciting. They had a lot of movement, whereas the other one is Nixon just talking, so it was relatively static. I'll give you, I mean, you know, the other thing is too, Nixon, when he was a fairly good debater. He knew stuff, straightforward, made good eye contact and stuff. The problem with Nixon was, just before the debate, first off, he campaigned all day, went all over Southern California trying to like shake hands with everybody. So when he got in, he was exhausted. The other problem he had is, true story, it's not a conspiracy theory, but he was getting into a car and somebody opened the door. You ever do this? You open the door really quick and it kind of snaps back on you a little bit. So banged him in the face. So part of his face hurt, so he only shaved on one side. So it kind of looked like he had this weird shadow over him. And keep in mind, these TV debates were in black and white. So everyone kept wondering, what the hell was wrong for him? And he looked beat and exhausted. Kennedy spent all day at the pool, getting all nice and tan, relaxed, took a little nap, looked over what he was going to say. So Nixon comes rushing on in after a whole day of campaigning. And see, what Kennedy realized was Kennedy was going to speak to millions of Americans. Nixon was trying to run around to speak to like 1,000 people, not realizing that the millions he were going to address might be more important. Make sense, y'all? All right. I'll tell you a Reagan story as well. Yeah, great. See, I mean, you know, I was aware of Jimmy Carter, and I would watch Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter was kind of a neat guy. I mean, Jimmy Carter was a lot like Mr. Rogers. Like, there was one time, I kid you not, I watched this. They used to have presidents would address the nation. I wish they would do this more often. And Jimmy Carter, I kid you not, he starts off, he's in the Oval Office, and he goes over, and he turns down the thermostat, like we're all watching him. And then he puts on a sweater to kind of show that we were, you know, because oil prices were going high, we need to conserve fuel oil. He put on, it was like Mr. Rogers. It was an important image. Okay, Reagan did one better than him. Ronald Reagan had a guy named Michael Deaver. Michael Deaver was like a wizard when it came not just to being aware of the media, but aware of its power. Don't know if you know this. Reagan was not always the most popular guy. At his lowest level, Barack Obama's approval rating was like upper 40s. Reagan, at his lowest point, was 35% approval rating. 1982. Reagan was in trouble. When he got in, he got like with like 50% of the vote. It was kind of like Donald Trump coming on in. You know, most people were trying to figure out who he was. He was considered far more conservative than others. Some people were worried he wanted to start World War III with the Russians. There's some analogy here, folks. He did get shot and survived, and there was like a big sympathy thing, but we were in the midst of a recession from 1901 to 1982. Actually, the recession of this time was worse than the Great Recession for unemployment. I remember unemployment getting up to 12.2%. The Great Recession got up to 10% in January 2009. So it was actually worse during Reagan's time. And everyone unloaded on Reagan. They're like, this is what we get for electing an actor. I mean, he was two-term governor of California, but everyone just said actor. And they're like, see, this is what you get. He wasn't experienced. He was out of his league. His party got hammered in the 82 elections in November. They lost a bunch of House seats. They lost a few Senate seats. And he actually told Nancy Reagan, like that Christmas, he said, well, I'm not going to run for another term. He actually told her that. I'm just going to be a one-term president. True story. And so 60 minutes, folks. Back then, 60 minutes, y'all, you ever heard, I mean, 60 minutes is still going. Back then, 60 minutes was even bigger. I know because my dad was a golf fan. True story. 60 minutes, like when 60 minutes came on, everything shut down. My dad would be watching, this happened a couple times, he'd be watching a golf tournament, he was a big fan of golf, like the Phoenix Open. And it went into like sudden death, or like, not extra innings, but like, you know, like the overtime. Like it's down to 2 golfers, and they go to like a sudden death hole, and they're getting ready to tee off, and boom, they went to 60 minutes. My dad's screaming at the TV, I remember that. And it's not like today, all of you ESPN fans and your little ticker that told you what the hell happened. You had to wait till the next day to read the paper. No, but 60 Minutes was the highest rated TV show. And they weren't going to wait 15 minutes on 60 Minutes. They didn't push things back. No, 60 Minutes starts. Now, football was starting to get pretty good, so sometimes they moved it, you know, like if it were a playoff game. But you better know who was going to win that game. Boom, 60 Minutes. 60 Minutes was going to do a story about Reagan in January of '83. And the 60 Minutes people went to Michael Deaver and they said, okay, we're gonna do a story about Ronald Reagan. And they didn't say this, but everyone knew. And then we're going to blast a little beep out of him. It's going to look really bad for him. We need some footage. Can you give us some footage? So See, most people would have said, go jump in the lake, you know, the more crude version of that. Most people would just, back then, they were like, oh, you're going to do a hit piece on us. Well, get the hell out of my office, you know, find what you can. Not on the internet, but you know, somewhere else. But no, Michael Deaver said, oh, you need footage of Reagan. I'll give you all the footage you want. Really? Okay. See, Michael Deaver was a smart guy. He was the only one who ducked when John Hinckley Jr. started shooting, by the way. He was a smart guy. And he put in pictures of everything. Reagan shaking hands with police officers and firefighters. Reagan chopping wood at his ranch in California. Reagan kissing babies. Reagan petting dogs. Reagan doing every cool thing a president does in their daily lives. 60 Minutes ran that story, and oh, did they give it to Reagan. How out of league he was. How failed Reaganomics were. How none of his policies were helping. Why he was responsible for that high unemployment rate. And Reagan jumped up in approval ratings. Do you know why?
The imagery portrayed.
Yes. But it's not just the images. It's that people will trust their sight. See, Michael Deaver took college classes. People trust what they see more than what they hear. You'll hear the same thing. You'll see two things. You're getting two messages. Reagan sucks. And then what you see, you will trust your eyes more than what you hear in the broadcast. That matters. Can you think of modern day analogies like that? Where people could hear one thing, see another. Something that you see you see on the internet, you see the video, that has convinced you more than anything else. Anything that anyone ever tells you. Anybody got a story? You mentioned the Ray Rice video. That was actually where I was headed for this. And I even mentioned, I said, without that video, like Ray Rice would be on everybody's fantasy football team, and he'd be going along, and we would be saying whatever her name was, wife was like exaggerating. If we didn't have that video. What else have you seen where people see certain images and that captures their minds even maybe more than whatever facts come out afterwards? What are famous visual images you have in
Hillary
politics?
Clinton saying, what difference does it make? There's an entire context and conversation going on.
Yeah. Like, who killed them? She was actually saying, who cares which group killed them? You know, they were focusing on what do we do about these people who died? Okay, that's an example. Another example. None of y'all have any visual images from politics? Anything you've seen? Hey, I got that Kennedy Nixon one. You already played that. It's all full of images of like little signs and pennants of like little flags of Kennedy. It makes it seem like everyone's on the march with Kennedy versus one guy in a suit talking. Anything related to politics where visual images like can catch people's minds, influence them.
Trump and him making fun of the reporter.
Oh yeah, okay.
George Bush, we all know the picture where they're whispering in his ear when he was reading the books and stuff.
Oh yeah, for 9/11. Heck, images of that, of 9/11 will get burned in your... How old were y'all? Wait, y'all, how old were you when 9/11 happened?
4.
Do you have any memory of that? What's the first big memory? See, for us, like the first big memory we had, I was 16 when the Challenger exploded. And most everyone was like, for us, that was like, for our parents, they had, where were you when the Kennedy assassination happened? And everyone would see those images. What's yours?
Our school locked down, so like they made you lock all the doors, and then everyone was moved into the gym.
For 9/11?
Yeah, on 9/11, yeah. And then we were all dismissed, like picked up.
Are there any, what's like the biggest image where you all talk amongst your peer group or you talk amongst your parents? What's like a big salient issue that, or memory or something that's a visual that you have that you're like, oh my gosh, like everyone wants to know where you were when something happened? Positive or negative?
My great grandmother talked about the Great Depression and how she ate cornbread every day when she was growing up.
Yeah, I remember being a graduate student, cornbread is a very inexpensive way to get by. All those jiffy ones. Plus, you know, any old idiot like me can make it. All you needed were like an egg and like water or milk. Actually, I had one where you didn't even need an egg. Anything. What do y'all have? An image that sticks in your mind. Like one of those pictures that says 1,000 words. Anything?
Wasn't it those,
Which one?
shooting?
Oh, was it Connecticut?
Yeah.
Sandy Hook shoot.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah.
I just love all the Joe Biden memes right now.
Oh my God! You see,
That's
How
why,
much-
Those are so
like,
funny.
out of everything Obama did, like, every time I think about Obama, I'm just gonna think about Joe Biden memes.
you know, I was reading a conservative magazine today, and the conservative magazine gave like front billing to those, and they said actually these are pretty popular. Where he goes, that's you know, why'd you give them the nuclear codes? No, that's like my old Nintendo, you know, game set thing. I'm like, that's not funny, Joe. Yeah, my wife was telling me about some of this.
Those are so fun.
Yeah, there was one, it was like, I put a note on one of the desks in the Oval Office that says, secret Muslim information, and then super glue it shut. That's gonna drive Trump crazy.
Run,
one
if
where
they
it's
can't
like
find us,
asking
we
them all
can't leave.
questions.
Then the one
I
with
mean,
Michelle.
Yeah,
and,
for
some
a number of people, they had images of when Obama was elected in 2008, what a big deal that was, and they can remember that.
Yeah.
How about this one? Here's one y'all didn't bring up. I thought you might. When everyone found the news about Bin Laden being killed.
Oh, yeah.
That was
Yeah.
a huge one for my class.
I remember all the shirts too,
Yeah.
cause they had the Bin Laden's face, or like the little target over it.
Yeah.
Well, there was one, in fact, this happened in my class. Like all my students were like, hey, can we like watch more of the